Welcome back. I have quite a bit of catching up to do. I thought I better address maybe some basics. We have a lot of younger viewers on the channel, which is a great thing. And some of them are encountering Mausers, different models of Mausers. And a lot of you are experts. I'm certainly not an expert, even if I own a few. I'm always learning something. But the question was, and there were many of these, what's the difference between the Mauser 98 and the Mauser 96 and the Spanish Mauser? And there's a lot of information on the web about all of the Mausers, but not necessarily all together. So I always thought it's useful if you can see the actions together. So we'll take a look at that. And I also have a Carcano on the table just for, it was in the Mauser vault, so I thought I'll take it out. Interesting story on that Carcano. Anyhow, before we get into that, I thought I'll show you something that we're hoping to take into the mountains. I just couldn't resist showing to you because it's so unusual and unexpected that this would be manufactured. It's quite short, as you can see, 12 gauge break open shotgun. Not necessarily available in all jurisdictions, and you can see that it has a removable choke tube, and this is obviously a magazine. But how does the whole thing work? So in a nutshell, like I said, I couldn't resist showing it to you, but quite simply, you load the shotgun and close it up, fire, and when you open, so we'll fire and then open, you'll hear the ejector. That would kick a shell out, and the ejecting shell hits this arm, which moves a shell over, and this is under spring pressure, and that gets fed into the chamber. And then you may think you have to now manually move it back in place, but you don't. There's a radius milled in here, so we just slam it shut and repeat. It's actually, so that would have flown over on its own. And why was this made? Well, you can read the history. The designer, Alof, A-L-O-F, wanted to come up with something that could be attached to a single-shot shotgun and make it somewhat like a repeater, like a pump action. But, I mean, this is some kind of creative mind. Now, naturally, it's not mainstream gun making, I don't think, but it's kind of irresistible. Just a magnificent gun. And, the more Turkish guns I own, the better they seem to get. I can't believe the quality. I told you before about that 410, which I've shot many times now, over and under, and they're all so far excellent. Maybe we looked at a lever action that just had some parts that were aluminum, but that weren't maybe robust enough. But this is something else. I hope they make a long barrel version that's available kind of everywhere, because it's just so unique. And one thing I did do, just because I saw how excellent the Turkish products are, and they're very reasonably priced, I thought I'll send one of the factories, I can't remember the name, an email and just ask them maybe they could start making a Mauser rifle, which reminds me, hopefully the Zastabas out of Serbia will start becoming available again. They seem to be sold out everywhere. And that leads me to think of my second passion, which is tennis. And we have a lot of people writing me from Serbia. So amazing, and congratulations. Like, this is a super outcome at the French Open. And we were watching Novak speak, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up as president of Serbia one day. I'm not sure he needs the noise, but definitely unbelievable athlete and person. So yeah, hopefully the Zastavas will come back in numbers. Although somebody told me the factory was closed, but I hear all kinds of things from all kinds of people. So that's kind of a lead-in to the Mausers. And which one should we start with? I guess the Spanish Mauser. So you've maybe seen this type of rifle before, carbine, I should say. The action, it isn't really primitive. It has all the characteristics that a Mauser should have, but the tolerances must be quite generous. We've got a gas relief port here in the front receiver ring. The stock is some kind of nondescript, maybe walnut of some kind, and it seems to be cock on close, so you can see that. And here's a couple of things. So you can take note of the fairly small receiver ring. That's not a big and beefy action like the 98 that we're going to be looking at in a moment. And some people were writing, that it's identical to the Swedish Mauser. I tried to fit bolt to action and so on. They're not interchangeable. Not that I expected them to be, but I did think that maybe they would be more similar. So, at first glance, they look similar. And this is the Swedish Mauser here. Maybe I'll find a way of lining them up here so that you can see them. This is Swedish Mauser. And the Swedish Mauser, often referred to as the 96. This one is Carl Gustaf. Beautifully made action. Also cock on close, so you get that. And you can see the similarity, right? The actions do look similar. On the other hand, you can see the cut for the stripper clip is much deeper on the 96 here. And the sound of the action is quite different, and the steel is quite different, and this bolt doesn't move around as much as the Spanish bolt. And again, as a collector, these kinds of observations aren't that meaningful because these are both excellent. Actually, out of all three, probably in this particular case, this Spanish Mauser is the most accurate, and it's a 7x57. People always ask me about the trigger. Yeah, it's a military two-stage trigger, but it's completely fine, and you can see it has a properly treated front sight with protective ears, short barrel, full stock. It's probably one of those military surplus rifles that if you found one, you could just take it hunting as is. I wouldn't drill and tap anything anymore. Not that I did it in the past, but a lot of people did. Quite a respectable rear sight. It's a coarse sight, there's no doubt about it, but it's still good. And if I remember right, this one shoots to sort of a 6 o'clock hold. So I was shooting at 6 o'clock and the bullets were hitting kind of the center of the clock. Not that I was shooting a clock. Anyway, that's the Spanish Mauser. And then the Swedish Mauser seems to be very available these days. I guess Sweden and maybe Finland and Denmark are sending their guns over here. Beautifully made action. And again, cock on close. Safety mechanism, totally familiar too. You can unload and it's on safe, or you can flip it over and it's locked, and you can't fire it. So it has a normal, as expected, flag safety. This one has the beautifully made rear sight. You'll know, or some of you will know, why some come with this amazing sight. This sight is more complex than a lot of entire handguns that are made these days. Just a beautifully made rear sight. And this is 6.5 by 55. And of course, the Spanish Mauser is 7 by 57, which is probably one of my favorite cartridges. And again, you've got the full wood on the theory that the barrel needs to be protected, among other things, and barrel bands. And there was a muzzle cap that fit at the end of the Swedish Mauser. So I'll try to leave this one here so that you can kind of see it. And here's the big 98. Now, what is this one? This one, excuse me, is Brazilian Mauser. So you've got the big receiver ring, and it can handle pretty well any cartridge. I mean, you have to open them up in some cases for the really long African cartridges, but these were routinely used for custom rifles and still are, and many people view these as the best rifles and actions ever made. This one's quite interesting because, in my opinion, it still has the arsenal grease on it. It doesn't look like modern grease. The bore looked really dirty, and then when I scrubbed it out, it looks brand new, which would mean that probably had that arsenal grease in there as well. And I'll flip it around so you can see the markings on the side of the receiver, Deutsche Waffen, and from Berlin, and the typical site. So if you're out shopping for a Mauser, yeah, I mean, obviously the Mauser 98, something like this, is really nice to come across, but maybe kind of turning into a high-end collector's item. And even though it's a little bit obscured, you can read here, Mauser model 1908 on the receiver, and then the beautiful crest from Brazil, which the various countries asked for. And yeah, I mean, it's just incredibly well made, very fine rifle. And the trigger is no surprise, is the floor plate. So I hope I've shown the different aspects of the Mausers. So 98, 96, and then I forget 93 or 91 for the Spanish Mausers. Different scale of action, as you can see. This is a much smaller action. The shroud is very simple looking, like I was saying at the outset, sort of maybe not primitive, but something else. But everything else, you know, definitely a lot better than what you can buy today. And then what did I say? I'd show the Carcano. This is a Sporter that was. These are actually put together in Austria. I don't know which firm did the rework, but it's quite well done. They're very inexpensive, and again, I think we talked about the Carcano before. Not that it's the best action. This one even has double set triggers, but it's still an excellent action. They work, and they're quite accurate, actually. There was some confusion with this model. When I bought this rifle, I was told it was a 6.5 by 54, and that they had converted them from 6.5 Carcano. So I just, when people tell me things, I just assume them to be true. And my chamber castings tell us different story. I haven't found any of these that are 6.5 by 54. They did remarket 6.5 millimeter. And actually, one of my collector friends, Sean, was saying maybe that was the origin of the confusion. They're all 6.5 Carcano so far, but maybe the 6.5 millimeter made people think that somehow these were 6.5 by 54. Anyway, you need a stripper clip to operate them. And I mean, this is not, a delicate, carefully machined watch-like mechanism. In that way, it's similar to the Spanish Mauser. There's a sort of simplicity to it. maybe a crudeness. And yeah, with the double set triggers, which actually, I think on this one, I mean, that's an excellent trigger, truly. And yeah, this, of course, for the stripper clip. And I have some stripper clips, so I'll try to get out in the mountains. Altogether, super handy little carbine in an excellent caliber. The Carcano's fine round. And Norma makes ammunition. So I'll put those down. Gee, I hope I remembered all your questions, but there you have it. It's kind of getting back to basics with Mausers, but there's so much interest in Mausers, which is why I hope the Serbian Zastavas come back in numbers. And I just wanted to close off with all the letters and emails and so on from Alberta, Canada, where the United Conservative Party was elected or re-elected. And I guess the premier is Daniel Smith. And for all gun owners around the world, I try to keep track of which countries are losing guns and which, where are the freedoms being taken away. So that party was reelected, and it looks pretty favorable. They're trying hard to, I guess, preserve some of the older principles and values of government, which is pretty amazing these days. The alternative government, I don't think, was in favor of firearms. I could have it wrong, but it looked to me like not so. So hats off and congrats to everybody in Alberta who likes guns. Anyhow, I hope that makes sense. Thanks for watching. We'll get that Alof into the mountains and do some shooting. It'll be interesting. Until next time, take care. Thanks for being here.